I think if you cut human beings, if you cut them in 4 different pieces, there is the physical part to a human being, there is the emotional part of the human being, there is the intellectual part of the human being, and then there is the spiritual part of the human being. If you're familiar with various branches of Chinese philosophy, so there are 4 very important major components to all human life, perhaps all of life. First, it's what we call earth, that's the human body. Then it's fire, which is human passions. Then it's air, which is the wind that you need for the fire to continue. And then there is the water, which is fluid. In other words, you can move through various desires. Usually, wherever you take your body, you have no choice but to have certain desires come your way. That becomes your emotional life. Now, if the emotions happen to be somewhat attractive, if the desires happen to be attractive, what happens is intellectually, your mental body descends and then looks at you and says, that thing out there looks good. How can you get it? There is no spirit right now. I suppose you could say the spirit is just you being profoundly passionate and have this intense need for whatever it is that you desire. Before we can talk about love, let me just backtrack and talk about the story about the guy who had lost the key to his house and was looking for it outside. You're not going to look for anything if you don't feel as if you've lost something. That's the first thing. No one is going to look for anything if there is no desire. In other words, you're not going to look for in your pocket for a $10 bill if there is no urge inside you that at 10 o'clock you got to get on the BART and it's going to cost you $10. So there has to be a need. Without a need, there is no desire to look for a key. Now, sometimes someone from the outside needs to come in and create those needs inside you. Coercion, manipulation, exploitation. The other thing about the key is that key is usually for a door that is locked or closed, and without it you can't enter. So wherever it is that you want to go, you can't get in because there are roadblocks. And you're desperately looking for a key, whether it's a past you're trying to overcome, whether it's a relationship that has a lot of wrinkles and you want to iron them out, doesn't really matter. Whether you have a class and you're getting an F in it, but you want to pass the class. When I lived in Davis in the 1980s, I was working at a motel in Davis. I forget what it's called, but I was a maid. And there were like 4 or 5 of us. Each of us were given about 30 or 40 rooms. And all the maids were given a master key. A master key is very, very different. A master key is like a Socrates. A master key is like a Plato. A master key is like a Jesus Christ. It's like a Malcolm X. They look down and they see everything. Not extremely clearly, but as clearly as possible. But most of us are quite fuzzy and foggy about those things. So these are the master key of human beings. They have access to something that they can just unlock any door that's out there for the most part. Now, there is a key for the physical life, there is a key for the emotional life, there is a key for the intellectual life, and there is also a key for the spiritual life. And for you to be on the quest for the spiritual key, I think, and that's my position, I may be wrong, you really need to have founded the keys to your physical, emotional, intellectual lives. That you have opened the door, you've gone through, you've seen what's out there, and you say, you know what? I have the key to walk into my physical life and it's good. My emotional life, it's good. My intellectual life, I've read a few books, it's good. I can think thoughts a little. I can reflect a little. But then you realize there is this other need that you have and you don't know what it is. Now, whenever you're looking for something and you can't find it, it always indicates some darkness. There are places you have overlooked. There are places you can't see and you need help. There is this heart we call the spiritual love. It sounds like a very exotic slogan, and I suppose it is, but it's really not fun. It's not fun for a couple of reasons. If you have graduated to the psychological stage where you're not going to the Gospels because you're sick, physically sick. Let's say you have cancer and you're dying, and you have nowhere else to turn except the Bible. If your relationship, romantic kind, is not suffering any major or serious issues, if intellectually you have lived a relatively sober and reflective life, you come at a certain crossroad in your life around the age maybe 40, maybe 45. Some people younger, some people older. No one really knows why it happens or how it happens. You say, you know, I love my house, I love my companion, and I love all the books that I have, and I love the information I have in my head. But it seems that I find myself looking for a key. I'm looking for a door. And I go to my physical life. And I remember by the time you get to this different stage in life, Your physical life can no longer provide you with answers. Your emotional life, no matter how wonderful your companion may be, they can no longer really satisfy your inner yearning for some invisible, unseen thing. And you comb through the books. You read Daughter of Fire, Awakened Dreams, Noam Chomsky, all these different books, but they're not offering you any keys. And as your physical, emotional, intellectual, and they're all healthy, all these lives or bodies are falling apart. You find yourself like Dante in the middle of the woods, and it's dark, and you're no longer 20, you're 40, at least 35, 36, and it's frightening. You know, you look at your life and you say, I have built this house with my own hands, blood and sweat. It used to be a home, but now it's just a house. I have this companion, beautiful relationship, healthy set of emotions that both of us have. He or she no longer nourish me. It doesn't mean you want a divorce, you want to become, homeless, or you want to divorce your companion. And you have all these books on the shelves and you read through them and you say, yeah, they have outlived their usefulness. There was a time that I could read Rousseau's Emile and be inspired. I look at the book now and I want to puke. It doesn't do anything for me. It's one thing to read the book of Job when your life has fallen apart. And then you go to the book 5 years later again, but your life is not as bad. And you read the book and it no longer inspires you. There are certain components about you that are just no longer there. So the book becomes useless. Now remember, it has taken you a long time to create your physical life. Physical life is complicated. Going to school is complicated. Getting a job is complicated because they're all doors. All these doors are locked. You need keys for every single one of the components that exist in the physical life. Emotional life is difficult. We're not the sort of creatures who are willing to sit, observe, examine, feel, reflect, and overcome all the things that we see. And intellectual life, it's a serious place to be because you just don't want to feel, you want to understand. And you can't really understand by reading a book or two. And you can't understand by just thinking about things for a year or two. You talk about 20, 30 years of your physical, emotional, intellectual lives coming together harmoniously. And then you reach this psychological, spiritual evolution where you say, I have everything. They're all great. I have no problem with any of them. Yet, I have this longing for something. I don't know what it is. You cook, it doesn't work out too well. Because the questions, the yearning don't leave you. You want to talk about your longing, your frustration with life, at least where you are, psychologically to your companion, but she looks at you, or he looks and says, what the hell are you talking about? And she becomes very frightened because all she hears is frustration, anxiety, confusion, dread, misery, and unhappiness. So, we got 2 kids. What are you talking about? And she tries to tell you what Noam Chomsky said. See, I've been there, I've done that, none of the stuff works. And now you realize what Dante said some centuries ago is very applicable to where you are now. You're in the middle of the woods and it's dark. And now you're in the presence of this god we call Pan, for panic, who lives in the jungle, in the forest. And that god only comes out when it's night. And night doesn't mean that sun needs to set. It means that you look at your life, into your life, and you find no meaning, you find no purpose, you find no direction. Now, if you have a culture that has those kind of narratives, the first thing that you'll do is say, okay, my physical life is good, I've graduated, my emotional life is good, I've graduated, my intellectual life is good, I've graduated. I need to retire now. That's Hinduism. And you retire to what? You retire from physical life, emotional life, intellectual life. And by retiring, I don't mean complete disengagement. Khalvat dar anjuman, it's one of the most important tenets in the Sufi tradition. Khalvat means solitude, and Juman means crowd. That you love every single person in this room. And if they invite you to the house for Thanksgiving, you will say yes to all of them. And when you're there, you will conversate with every single one of them. You will cook, you will clean, you will laugh, you will do all sorts of things. But on the inside, it's only a mirage. It is temporary. You go in there alone. You have this art that allows you to pretend, to be social, and you need to be political. That's healthy. And you never forget that I am here because I was invited. I am here because I'm a social animal. I am here because I need people to survive. I also know there is this other part to me that is forever alone, can never have a companion. It's a solitary journey. خلوت در انجمن. Have a job, be married, be good to your kids, be good to your companion. Have a job, make lots and lots and lots of money, have a tremendous amount of physical, emotional, intellectual power in life. But you will always remember that there is this other part of you that will always remain poor. And your physical, emotional, psychological, or intellectual life will never provide any keys, any doors to your spiritual life. And that's the way the lion and the lamb will lay together. You respect both the lion part of you and the lamb part of you. If you come, say, from the Indian tradition, or from the Chinese tradition, or from the Japanese tradition, or from the Middle Eastern tradition, the narrative is already there, which is there will come a point to your life, if you are lucky, at least in this life, that the three other areas of life, physical, emotional, intellectual, are healthy. You're both blessed and cursed to look for a different kind of meaning to the sort of human animal that you are. Initially, how it begins, you're going to go to your physical, emotional, intellectual life to look for keys. You're going to talk to your friends. It's not going to work. You're going to buy new sofas, new cars. That's not going to work. You're going to change your job. That's not going to work. You're going to find new friends with whom you can talk about this stuff. That's not going to work. This is a solitary journey, which means the tradition says, now that you are at the stage, go look for a guru. You're in darkness. A teacher is someone who's going to take away your darkness and slowly plant seeds. And out of those seeds, you will experience moments of light, clarity. No one else and nothing else can give you. You have no choice but to become addicted to physical life. You have no choice but to become addicted to emotional life. You have no choice but to become addicted to the elements or all the components in your intellectual life. So attachment, addiction exists on all these three levels. You're going to now find a guru or a teacher out there. What happens is it becomes a bit more complicated because you have a certain need. You don't understand the need. You also come with your own unique temperament. And it's very much like going to a party and becoming attracted to a guy or a gal out there. The same thing will happen in your quest to finding someone who can take you out of this darkness. The same thing will happen when you go out there looking for a teacher or a book, doesn't really matter. You can look at Sadhguru and he can say wonderful things, but you say, nah, I'm not really feeling it. You can look at the Buddha and you say, yeah, he says some very, very interesting things, but I'm not feeling it. And remember, these are all like bona fide teachers. They know a thing or two. But even though they give you insights, they're not giving you the key. And you have to figure out why. Everybody else is following him or her. Why can't I? For some strange reason, the door that lives inside you, and you don't know what it is, what kind of a door it is. All you know is a Sadhguru is a key. You put this key inside the door, it just doesn't unlock. And despite you self-deceiving and being very cunning into forcing yourself to accept this man as your teacher, it's just not going to work. Eventually you're going to walk away. So as you shop for physical things, as you shop for emotional things, as you shop for intellectual things, you're going to shop for spiritual things, spiritual teachers, or spiritual books. You have no choice but to shop, and you need to shop, because there are lots of charlatans out there who are more than willing to take your body, to take your emotions, to take your intellect, to take your money, all sorts of things from you. So you need to be clever, cunning, and you need to be a healthy seeker. And by healthy, I mean your physical, emotional lives, for the most part, they have to be relatively intact. If not intact, you need to at least understand them relatively well. And it's not that all of us can, and most of us just walk into stuff quite ignorant and being in a dark place. And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. No one knows. Like anything else in life, it's a shot in the dark. Now, just because you're on the spiritual quest, it doesn't mean you have divorced your life completely. You're going to look out there and someone, for some strange reason, you feel as if they have certain qualities that are answering to the needs and the yearning that live inside you. And with every need, and remember how needs come about. First you're curious, then you become interested, then you say, I want it. Then when the want continues, you say, man, I really just need to be around this person. The moment it becomes a need, you're now entangled emotionally. When I had met Hussein, it was a very, very casual relationship. Very casual. And then there came a point where I said, man, if a day goes by where I don't hear from him, or he doesn't come to the car wash, if I don't give him a call to talk to him, I'm a complete mess. If I can't reach Hussein, I'm going to call Mehrdad. If I can't call Mehrdad and he's not there, I'm going to call the other Hussein. Because the three of us, he was the umbilical cord. He was like our sun. If you can't find the sun, find the moon. If you can't find the moon, find the stars. If you can't find the star, find the goddamn fire out there somewhere. Because all they do, all these different things have in common, they illuminate. And then you fall in love. Now, the longevity of physical components in your life, 2 weeks, you'll get tired. Emotional life, 2 years, you'll grow tired. Intellectual life, they can carry you for 10, 15, 20 years, okay? And it's a great life. I mean, all these different lives are good, as long as you kind of know that, like milk, they have an expiration date. And you have the resources that when you look at the bucket of milk and it says expired 2 weeks ago, you have $10 in your pocket, you're healthy enough to walk to Safeway, you buy another gallon, you put in the fridge. The problem with this particular key, the spiritual key, is that first, you don't really know what your door is, and you don't know the nature of your door. You don't even know what sort of a keyhole you have. Now, this person, as you get together with this person more and more and more and more, as your emotions flare, you could be married, whatever the case may be, you begin to have two lives. A physical life that has a good amount of emotions and mental activity, intellectual activity, and the spiritual life. And you better be able to keep these two lives very, very, very separate. Very separate. You can't serve two masters at the same time. If you're going to your husband, focus on your husband, because the moment this other person walks in from this other world, your life here will be ruined. Maybe for 5 minutes, maybe for a year, maybe for a month. So respect each world as you walk into it. It's going to take you a long time to be able to understand the sort of key this person is giving you. All the other keys you can see. It's immediate. But this other place, it's a place you and I have never been. And so when you fall in love with this person, you have no idea why. You don't know what they have. You don't know what they're giving you. You don't know why they're giving you those things. And you assume that because every other area of your life, the physical, emotional, intellectual, there has always been a key, and you've used the key, and you've opened the door, and you've seen the inside. Some negative, some positive. This, you have to wait and wait and wait and wait and wait. And as you wait, your love grows, but also with it comes confusion grows, anger grows, loneliness grows, dependency grows. And it's a very, very difficult place to be. Now, there is biologically inside us this component called fear. It's there for a reason. It tells you subconsciously, the world is dangerous, people are dangerous. Be aware. If you doubt, it is because something about you is rising up saying, be careful. You don't want to be hurt again. You don't want pain. You're not the sort of animals who enjoy pain. And these are good things to have. If the physical, emotional, intellectual lives invite you to the world on the outside, the world on the outside, you can see, you can taste, you can touch, you can smell, and you can hear. When you mature or graduate to a place where you want to kind of understand who you are, if you have a soul, the spiritual quest, so to speak, it's beyond your senses. You don't know what you're looking for. Because you don't know what you're looking for, and because you have this feeling that this other person has some of the nourishing components that you're looking for, you will fall in love with this person, and you will fall in love in this way. You will always desire to be in his or her physical space. Always. And it comes in different ways. For us, we just needed to be at his house. We need to see him with our own eyes. We need to hear him. If he wasn't around, the three of us, Hussein, Mehrdad, and I, would sit and talk about this stuff. The physical. And remember that the physical life has been created by this person named Hussein, i.e. your teacher. Like a billboard, your teacher advertises certain things to you. Sensory things, things you can see and hear and touch, and they bring about emotions. You need to only occupy physical spaces that bring about those specific emotions. You don't want to read Harry Potter to be inspired. You need to read the Gospels to be inspired. It has to be religious texts, philosophical texts, psychological texts, anthropological texts. You're looking for a specific set of emotions. You're not an emotional junkie. and you're not open to diversity. You want the emotions that Hussein creates for you, your teacher creates for you. They have to be in that particular branch. And what you realize is physically, you just desire intensely to occupy that space where your teacher is, physically. And it sounds strange. How could you fall in love with someone's physical space? You do. That's how it happens. And then you only enjoy emotions that are relevant to the ones that Hussein created. Okay? So not only do you fall in love with this man physically, you also love the emotions. But now the emotions that he created come from one simple thing: his ability to think and express his thoughts and emotions. And you realize, man, I really love the way he speaks. I love his mustache. I love the way he gazes into your eyes, which makes you cry sometimes. I like his space even when he's not there. And every time he doesn't look at you, you feel hurt, pain, because when he doesn't look at you, you have zero value. Not to him, just in life, period. You just want to die. And then you realize that the sort of thoughts he has and the sort of emotions that are generated by thoughts, he didn't get them from books. So initially I had assumed that Hussein is the way he is because of all the books he had read. Then time passed, I realized that there is this complications with wisdom, the door behind which wisdom lives, the keys that opens the door to wisdom. It doesn't exist in books. It doesn't exist in human thought. It only exists in inspiration, and you have no idea what they'll to do with it. All you know is that even though this guy offers you no keys, no doors, but intuitively you feel as if he's offering you something that you can't really categorize or express well. And every time you try to, people think you're like stupid. And then you realize, man, this guy has a soul. And before any thoughts come to him, it has to filter through the soul. And then that set of thoughts or ability to think and reflect will create a set of emotions. Those emotions also have elements of his soul in it. And his physical space also, because he's a man who sits, thinks, writes, feels, cries, and prays, even the physical element is contaminated by his soul. And you realize for the first time in your life you have fallen in love with some man's body, some man's emotions, some man's intellectual abilities, and a soul that you can't see, and yet you feel. Now, when you fall in love with such a person, your entire life is turned upside down. And there are going to be moments of profound jealousy and anger, because your life is a mess. You go to him and you say, I'm angry. My life is going nowhere. My brother graduated, my sister graduated. I am 8, 10 years older than they are. I'm nowhere. And he looks at me and says, Amir, be patient. Be patient. You have a wife. You got kids. You got money. You got a house. I got nothing. Patience for what? And all he says, be patient. And the truth is, you can't walk away. You're in love with him. And time passes, and now you become a monogamist. If there is anything I want to do with my life, if it doesn't contain emotions, if it doesn't contain reflection, if it doesn't contain philosophy, but his kind of philosophy, I'm not touching it. So he gives me like dialogues of Plato in Persian. I say, really? This is philosophy? Yeah. You know what? I'm going to major in philosophy. And I tell my parents, but they're very disappointed. Because no one from the Middle East should do philosophy. I mean, you're born with philosophy. The moment you come out of your mother's womb, you're a philosopher. I mean, the country's a mess. You know, it pushes you to think and reflect and feel about awful things in life. And you get your bachelor's, but because he's made you feel stupid, the bachelor's doesn't really elevate your status. But then you get your master's, you still feel kind of dumb. You get your PhD, you still feel dumb. But 20 years pass by, you realize you have devoted your life to this man. Even though later on he became completely irrelevant for me, but he was the concrete, the anchor, the platform on which I built my life. Now that is the kind of love you want. Something whose expiration date is way. It's far into the distant future. And by the time you realize that you no longer need this kind of a love, by that time your life is settled. You have accepted both your wins and losses. And you also begin to know the value of things, what it is that brings you pleasure. That in itself gives you a good amount of contentment, satisfaction. And even when your dad dies, even your mom dies, you will grieve. You will be very, very sad. You'll be very, very angry. But something happened to you some 30 years ago. You suffered the loss of your own life, your own identity, your own value as a human being. You've been grieving for the past 30 years. Now it's just your dad has passed. You understand it really, really well. And now you can be a great daughter to your mom. But that is a love that you want to pursue. That's a key you want to look for and a door you want to knock on. Very, very tough to find.